Welcome, Jonathan Bean.
Boom. Get through it. So we're going to talk about innovating fast or dying slowly. My name's Jonathan Bean. As Alexandra said, I'm head up the marketing organisation at a company called My News Desk. Have we got any My News Desk customers in the audience? Oh, cool. I'm amongst friends. Excellent. So you guys may have come to our event on Monday. But basically, I've been in the marketing, communications and media business for about 20 years now. And so I am not a millennial. But I started off in the media business. I worked for a UK company called UBM, and we did a lot of digital transition there. They had 150 different media titles, and we turned it to really a online business. So we did all of that. That was a huge company. And then I came across this tiny little company called My News Desk at the beginning of the 2000s. We were about 5 people then. I hopped on board, and now we're a lot bigger. We're about 200 people, and without knowing all these fancy words like disruptive innovation or growth hacking or anything like that, we essentially became a market leader in the PR SaaS area and developed a lot of money for our parent company, which is a media company. And that's where I'm going to share some exchanges, because I think I'm now on the board of one of Sweden's media companies called LRF Media, and I see lots of similarities on the challenges that media companies have and that myself, as a brand marketeer, has. I head up a marketing organisation of about 20 people now. There's a great presentation to kick off the day. I use 32 different marketing technology products to get that marketing organisation to run. But the problems that I see at media companies and the problems that I see and the challenges that we have as brand marketeers are very, very similar. So I want to run you through some of those ones. One thing I wanted to share with you, though, I'm not going to be able to stay for the virtual reality section that you've got at the end of the day. But I've been talking a little bit about it recently, and I'm fascinated by it. I said it would be the next big thing in 2011. And I was speaking to one of the speakers this morning about, why did it never happen until Pokemon Go? And I'm sure you've all really sort of explored that this summer with your kids. And I had all this. We've written great blog posts about the learnings that we can take out of Pokemon Go. But I decided, instead of talking about that, to ask my 10-year-old daughter. So, what makes Pokemon Go so cool? Number one, she said, it makes being outside fun. Okay, that's cool. Being outside fun, and you never know what's going to happen. And I thought that's those 2 learnings are pretty amazing, right? If you, in your marketing for your companies, doesn't matter if you're a one-person show or you've got thousands of employees, if you can make something fun for the people that you're providing information or content to, and you can give some area of suspense, you don't know what's going to happen, then you'll be on the path to success. Right, I'm going to whip through this presentation. I think I did it in 45 minutes, and I've got 25 minutes to do it today, so forgive me if I'm speaking fast in a foreign language, but grab me on Twitter afterwards if you need to, johnobeen.com if you need to do that. So this is the CEO of one of the world's largest media companies, Axel Springer, and he says the question is whether traditional content companies will win the game because they have learned how to use technology, or whether the technology companies win because they learn how to create content. That's the great game we are in today. And certainly both sitting at a technology company for my day job and sitting on the board of a media company and being owned by a media company, I really recognize this challenge. And I think technology companies are kind of winning the game so far, or they certainly have in the last couple of years. Looking at the amount of spend that all of you guys probably are putting into companies like Google, companies like Facebook. In the last presentation, I didn't see Sydsvenskan up there. Didn't see a tool to analyze your coverage there. No, these guys are winning. I'm not going to go through all the different platforms that and initiatives that each of them are doing. But if you look at the way you're consuming news today, probably will be in many of those platforms. But this is another guy we should listen to. And I know Uber divides opinion wherever I talk around the world. I'm personally a big fan. But Travis says, whoever creates more convenience at the lowest cost creates value. And I think that's really important. Are we being really convenient? Whether it's a website, whether it's an app, whether it's a we were talking this morning at breakfast about a restaurant setup, actually, at an airport. are you creating convenience at a lower cost? Cost doesn't always need to be money. Then you know you're going to be onto a winner. So, what's the problem? Well, this is the problem that media companies face, and it's quite interesting. I saw in one of the rooms there you've got a great session on growth hacking, and as a marketing, I did have sort of what was it? What was my title once? Chief Marketing and Growth Officer, because people thought the growth was a really cool thing to put on stuff, and I sort of said no, forget the growth thing. Right, but what's really interesting, I get interviewed a lot about growth hacking and growth in businesses. What really is so interesting when you look at that is a lot of companies, when you get to it, is it a magical AdWords campaign? Is it some amazing email marketing or newsletter? Is it the way they've search engine optimized their website? Often, actually, when you go back to the story of when an app or a company or a system had some kind of exponential growth, they say, well, actually, we got some press. We got some press, and then it really started to take off. So all of the tools we talked about, I use, or the first presentations, you know, I use those tools. But also, it's very, very crucial to get that coverage in media. But this is what's facing media companies today: huge problems with monetization, and this is both opportunities and challenges for brand marketeers too. So, you know, increased competition from media startups. And I'm sure all of you that work, it was interesting talking to David last night, that, you know, this conference started and it was all very, very small companies, and now there's a lot of bigger companies coming as well. If you're a larger company, no doubt you're being disrupted by a smaller, faster, more agile startup. Lower ad rates on mobile. So for media companies, this is a huge problem. It's a good opportunity for smaller brands. For us, it's cheaper, but some would argue less effective advertising on mobile. I would definitely argue less effective on mobile. Of course, increased uses of ad blockers. I think in Sweden it was up to 25%. And this is the last point that media companies scream about and fixated about, that most millennials do not want to pay for news. I don't agree with that. As someone that has just bought a SVD Junior subscription for my 10-year-old daughter, because she doesn't really like reading novels, but she wants to know what's going on in the world. I believe the completely patronizing term millennials, people do want to pay for news. But this is what media companies are terrified about. But there's some good news out there, and here it is. The actual demand, if you look at supply and demand dynamics, demand has gone up 100 times. And when I talk about demand, it's the amount of time you use consuming your news. It's huge, right? You're on the train. You're on the bus. Some of us are on the toilet with our mobile phones, you know, checking that fleet. We're consuming news and content 100 times. And the thing for media companies is actually, you know, actually the costs have only gone down 10 times. So if you can get hold of that dynamic, that it's actually cost has only gone down 10 times, but the demand has gone up 100 times, then you're in a good place. Problem is, they have a massive problem with business models. And actually, we often have big problems with business models as well, because we're stuck on one. You know, even the greatest company in the world, or one of the greatest companies, Google, who you're going to hear about later on today, they got one business model, right? It's called advertising. It's AdWords. They've got loads of cool projects going on, but many of us are stuck with one business model. But here's the business models. Here's the 10 business models that media companies can look at today. And if you're in any type of content business, these are the business models that you should be looking at. The problem is, when I was over and we were doing digital transition at this other media company in the UK, one of the biggest, we only looked at advertising and subscription. And a lot of companies only do that. I get sent PowerPoint reports of, you know, financial results. This is how we're doing on advertising, and this is how we're doing on subscription. But there are so many other exciting business models to actually explore. I haven't got time today to sort of go into specific detail on each one of those, but there's amazing, you know, the huge area of events for media companies, but also for brands as well, also for brands to go into. Of course, we've learnt about e-commerce, and I think the interesting thing is the number of different companies that were not e-commerce companies that are actually adding an e-commerce element today is very interesting. I'm going to touch on a couple of them. One of them is crowdfunding. And a great example of that is Blank Spot Project. I've just been on tour with Martin Shibby and Britt Saxton, talking about, we're also a shareholder in Blank Spot Project. Have any of you guys here followed the journey of Blank Spot Project? Hands up? No? Go and. Some of you, go and have a look. Obviously, it comes from Martin's experience being in jail in Ethiopia for 14 years and bringing quality foreign journalism to everyone here in Sweden, actually, and beyond, because they're also doing it in English as well. But it's pretty amazing his journey from being a journalist to actually being an entrepreneur, teaming up with Britt Saxton and actually going through that journey. It's amazing. Another one is micropayments, and this is something that I was talking about, 4 or 5 years ago. See, the thing is that we all think that things are changing really quickly. Well, let me tell you, things will never be as slow as they are today. That's the good news. That's the good news. And I was talking about this back in 2011 about how this would change the media industry, and we're just trying to sort of starting to get that now. But actually, micropayments. This is a platform called Blendel out of the Netherlands, who are now partly owned by the New York Times and Axel Springer. But they're bringing micropayments to media. So instead of having this long subscription, you will pay for quality content. It's pretty cool. And this is essentially how I see both media, but also brands too. When I look at the My News Desk organization, or when I look at a media company, these are the three things that we need to think about. Content. And again, I don't have time to go into the whole area of content marketing or quality versus quantity content and stuff like that. But content is key, and I'm sure you've got lots of good sessions regarding that. We will need to produce more content. That's for sure. I see far too many people just doing what I would call PR or communications 1.0. Put out a press release when I've got a product or service offering to talk about, or when my CEO says that he or she's done a good deal or partnership. It's great, let's do a press release on that. Everyone will be interested. And you say, well, no one's really interested in that stuff. And they say, no, let's do a press release. Everyone's interested, and it doesn't get any coverage. But content, and as I said, really finding out what is the problem that you're solving for the customer or the people that you're working with, and talking about that. Community, this is the second one. This is how we did digital transition over at UBM. We actually said that we're not in the business of providing to advertisers and subscribers. We're in the business of creating a community between buyers and sellers. Buyers and sellers. How can we create a community? How can we create an experience between buyers and sellers? So I'd ask you guys, as brand marketeers, as companies, how are you creating a community between your buyers and sellers? Is it through content? Is it through an event? Is it through other experience? Is it through your salespeople? Is it through your customer service organization? Is it through social media channels? How are you creating a community? And then, of course, the third one is commerce. And this is where a lot of media companies, run away from it, saying, no, we're not in the e-commerce business, we're just in the editorial business. And for other companies, it's easier. For commercial companies, of course, this is connected to the business result. Quick thing on this. So I think we'll probably all agree we're in the attention economy. So much content out there. For those of you that have seen me before talk about that, the era of content shock, so much content concentrating on the 2% of people that actually care. Do you know who the 2% of people that actually care are? But we're all looking to grab attention, and definitely to take advantage of this. This needs to change. This is the amount of time over here we spend on different, devices. So obviously on mobile, 51% of our time is actually now spent on mobile. On the desktop, 21%, and 27%. And actually, it's only this year that My News Desk, we've got about 1.6 million unique visitors to our sites per month. But it's only this year that we've tipped over into the majority mobile. But the time that we spend, 51%. And yet the global media spend, this was in 2014, but let's look at 2017 figures. So we spend 51% of the time, but us guys, as marketeers or companies, we're only spending 70% of our spend on mobile. Pretty crazy, right? This is next year. Just ridiculous. What the fuck are we doing? And then of course, you've got the same thing, but we're still spending a huge amount on TV as well. So that needs to change. But also, what's important in the attention economy is this. Is actually the classical rules of advertising across media. And for those of you guys that went to school a few years ago, or probably when I did, or before that, we learned all about sort of attention and branding and communication and delivery. And we learned these classic rules across different media types. But as we move into this mobile world, we need to look much more at the interaction technologies and possibilities, and we've got much better speakers here today to talk about that than me. But we're still really focusing on this bit when we should actually be looking at what is the interaction cost here. How are we disclosing immediately who we are? Are we looking at the screen sizes, and is there a user flow there or an information sent? I often call it the 4-second value proposition. And I learned that by just basically communicating. It's great. I communicate with my daughter on Snapchat. And every time I snap my daughter, thankfully it's only one of them that's on Snapchat so far, I always think, okay, I've got a limited space. What do I say that has the biggest impact as a parent? And that's also pretty important as a brand, right, when you're marketing. So what is that? Whereas my 70-plus-year-old mother, I communicate with her on Facebook. I see both of them too in real life, but that's the issue. So if you've only just got the hang of Facebook, and okay, but so we need to bring across this great thinking, because this is all still very relevant on this side, with thinking about the mobile reality that we live in. And I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I do think going forward that if we can limit supply, because the problem is in the media world at the moment, there's too much supply out there, too much content going out there, and that's what's making it difficult to monetize. But by using, if you look at Snapchat, for example, the fact that it is a limited supply, and I think there's some really interesting companies doing really long-form content actually on Snapchat Discover. I'm sure a lot of people are saying, oh, Snapchat's got nothing to do with me, I'm not going to use it. But we can learn a lot of the lessons of what media companies are doing, huge long-form content in Snapchat Discover. And you think that Snapchat's probably a platform just to be swiping through, right? But actually, we're seeing lots of huge long reading within Snapchat Discover. It's really interesting. So you catch the attention there, and then huge long-form reading is on. Also, this is a interesting thing. So at the back end of last year was the first time we've had this social revolution over the years. But actually, it's the first time that the messaging apps, the volume of users in messaging apps, overtook the social platforms. So what impact is that going to have? And I think we're only just discovering now, how we can use the messaging apps as really effective marketing channels. Because we've been so focused on the social stuff over the last few years, both organic social and paid social. But the interesting thing in this, omni-publishing, it's like, it's a posh word for lots of channels, right? What's super interesting, and what I'm really pleased that the first presentation also brought up, is actually the backbone of what we do as marketeers, is these two. Search. So 100 billion monthly searches, 3.5 billion searches per day. Being found there, using search, is absolutely crucial. And I know there's a great workshop out there with a company called Rank Trail, where you can go and learn out more about that. But being found in search is absolutely crucial, and so many people miss that because they've jumped onto the next thing. I don't know, they're investigating Snapchat. But make sure you have your SEO and your search fundamentals sorted out. And then the other thing, and we use this, really, really carefully, is email marketing. It somehow seems unsexy in today's world, email marketing. It's something that we were really getting enthused about in the 1990s. Still, for us, it's one of the biggest channels driving growth. Huge, huge amounts of channels. So get your search sorted out, get your email marketing sorted out, and then, of course, all the other channels on top of that, whether they be paid or organic, it's important. Also, how am I doing for time? Okay, that's good. Sorry to rush through it. 25 minutes is tough gig. Um, but I know you all really want coffee now. It's been at least, what is it? It's been 47 minutes without coffee. You know, you definitely need to go and make some friends, like Alexandra told you. Just a few slides left. So what I wanted to share with you, we have about 65,000 journalists that work with us over at My News Desk. Many of them wanting your news, and we provide relevant news to them. So we thought the media landscape's changing. Our landscape as brand marketeers is changing. How does your world look today? So this is what 2,000 of them told us. And if you want, you can go into mynewsdesk.com and oi, hello. That's interesting. Can I have some help? It's not being nice to me, this. I just click to go forward. I can see. I can talk you through the slides while they're dark. So essentially, what they told us was that the priorities of publishers, media publishers, and journalists were not aligned. You know, these publishers were looking about how they actually survived in this digital world, and the journalists were still wanting to sort of do what they did in 1990. So they're obviously not aligned. Time was very, very important to them. They realized that today's journalists needed not just to be content creators, but they needed to be marketeers too. They needed to market their content. And that was something that they hadn't had before. How are you doing? Yeah, I think it crashed. Oh my God. Do we need to restart it? I think we might have to, right? We got a couple of minutes. So I'm gonna close it down for you. I'm gonna keep talking. We can force close it. If you can start it up. You can start it up, can't you? No? Cancel. I've got a lot of things going on.
If you want, Jonathan,
you can ask me some questions. Okay.
We have some questions.
Okay. Let me just see if we can. Let me just. No, it's still okay. Shoot with the questions.
We have some questions from Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we start if we want to innovate fast?
So I've got a few slides on this, hopefully, which will start me in a minute. There's some actually great work with Google and BCG have done. It actually starts for me with your culture and your company. So really, it's about, are you it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, single entrepreneur. It's a bit easier if you're that, or an industry leader with huge teams. Do you have a culture which is open to innovation and ideas and changing things quickly? Because if you don't, then you're not going to get anywhere very fast. Another thing regarding innovation is you do need a process, though. You need a process for innovation. And one of the slides I was going to share is our innovation process at My News Desk. So it's actually about, many of you probably have read The Lean Startup, but it's based on that. So we do what we call agile marketing over at My News Desk. You start with brainstorming. You brainstorm ideas. Then the second phase is experimentation. You take some of those ideas. You can't take all of the ideas, but you take some of those ideas and then you put it into an experimentation format. You want me to log back in? And because I got a great slide on this. So you experiment. So you brainstorm, and then you experiment, and then you actually analyze the results, and then you iterate on those results. So it's alive again. You've only got 9 minutes to coffee. So having a process, having a culture where you can innovate, and then having a process is absolutely crucial. Jesus Christ. Here we go. Is there any other questions?
Yes, we have one more, I think. Okay, so you talked about email marketing. How should we work with email marketing to God morgon.
Boom.
To succeed.
I will. Data. Data is where you start, first of all. Don't even start with the email marketing. What is your database? How does that actually look? So I've got 9 more minutes. So, but the most problem is that people, they concentrate on the content of email marketing, but the data's completely messed up. Have a look at your database. Clean your database. Segment your database. Make sure you're not sending the same message to all those segments in the database. Are they customers? Are they prospects? Where are they in the journey in the customer funnel? But this is basically where I would start. And it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're an entrepreneur or you're actually a huge business, because this is what and this is from BCG and Google. This is what I've used to create probably what I like to think is a very effective marketing organisation. But of course, I'd say that. So build the right team, organisation, and culture. It's absolutely critical to do that. Invest in technology. As I said, there's loads of technology providers here. We're a technology provider. I have 32 different marketing technology apps going. Perform a capability assessment of your organisation. What talent is it that you actually need? Design the organisation and develop the culture. Then look at how you fund this journey with your bosses to say to take us forward in marketing. We will need money. This is a lot for bigger companies, but if you're an entrepreneur, it's also you have some investment. You have 100 kroner. How are you going to apportion that 100 kroner? Then it's absolutely crucial that you do this. And too many people miss this step of creating short-term wins that creates trust and confidence in either themselves, their management teams, or their boards. What are your short-term wins that you can go back and you can go tick, 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 you're done. And then, of course, the strategy, the data KPIs, I really don't have time to do that. We have, for example, every month I look at 600 rows of different data points to see where we can go. And I do a bit of lecturing at a school called Hyper Island, and I say to them, you know what, funnily enough, when I'm looking at those 600 rows of data, it's sometimes one cell that stands out. It's one cell in that actually is important. So, get the strategy on top too. But this is it. So talent is number one, I just want to leave you with. The journalist survey stuff, if you want to look at how journalists are and how they are, then go to mynewsdesk.com and download to learn at mynewsdesk.com and download that report. But this is how I see. Does anyone know who this guy is here? Who? No, it's Jeffrey Pulitzer, surprise journalist. Never works in the Nordics, that slide at all. But anyone know who the middle guy is? Yeah, okay. So that's Jeffrey Pulitzer. And for me, this is how modern marketing organizations need to work. You need to have a Jeffrey Pulitzer. You need to have an amazing journalist. Anders Ekström from Sydsvenskan. He's pretty awesome too, right? But you need to have a great journalist. You need to have a great content creator. You need to have amazing technology. You need to have fantastic engineering. And you need to have a Gordon Gekko. You need someone that can actually commercialize it. I had a great conversation last night where we talked about too many people are user huggers and not commercial people. But putting those three people together, and this doesn't matter whether you're a media company or you are a commercial marketing organization, you need those three skill sets. The number two is this innovation engine, and that comes back to what we do at My News Desk. This is our innovation engine. So we brainstorm at the start. We then put experiments in place that we follow. We have a monthly growth meeting where we're looking at the data from those experiments. We're analysing what those experiments have actually done, and then at the end we systemize it. Is it a good experiment? Should we make changes? I'm not going to go into the technicalities of A/B testing and stuff. You can come up in a second. Come up and join me, Alexandra, because you can ask me some questions before we get coffee in 4 minutes.
Yes.
Change is very important that you get your hold of, but I'm not going to do that. I'll leave you with my faivourite quote, though. This is very, very important, because I've been living in Sweden a while now, right? Mm. And I realised that we all want to be this wonderful word, duktig. Yeah? And I was talking at Karolinska yesterday, a huge auditorium at Karolinska, and cancer was being solved in one area. I had my third child at Karolinska, so I was thinking about that, and I said, what am I here to talk about? Marketing. I'm here to talk about marketing, right? I think we need to take ourselves a little less seriously, actually. We need to start having a little bit of fun. It's okay if we're not so duktig every time. Yeah, it's all right. Because actually one of the key things, and this guy was quite good at strategy, right? Success is the ability to go from one failure to another without the loss of enthusiasm. And that will get you a long way in digital marketing today. You don't quite know what the result's going to be. You're going to have massive successes and really celebrate it, and you're going to be, wow for your boss, but you're going to have a lot of failures too. So make sure that you create that both for your team, if you have a team, and you create that space and you discuss this with your boss or your board if you have a boss and a board. But that's it. We got 2 minutes before coffee, right?
2 minutes.
Till they go and make some friends.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Har ni några frågor? Så det går bra att ställa på svenska. Så
Ja, du kan ställa på svenska. Det är helt okej.
Ah, so he could speak in Swedish actually.
Nästa gång.
Ja, nästa gång. Är det någon som har en fråga i publiken? Annars har jag en, som vanligt. Men det måste finnas någon här som har någon. Nej? I have one.
Okay, go for it.
So you spoke about your daughter.
Yes.
She's 10 years old.
Yes.
How do you speak to reach her? Because she's a new generation.
Yeah.
And you have to make it fast.
Yeah.
So how do you reach her?
I
How
guess,
do you be relevant?
Yeah. No, I think take an interest and be curious, I think, is one mindset to have. Yeah. We were having, this is like I thought this was an internet conference. This is like a parenting conference. I love it. Right. So, no, but I think we were having a big debate in the parents' evening about screen time, right, for kids, and also about all these digital channels. My daughter started her YouTube channel this year for the first time, 24 subscribers.
Wow.
She needs a few more if I'm going to retire on that advertising revenue.
So what's the name of the channel?
Lollo Bella is their channel.
Bella.
Only 2 videos there, so I'm not sure. But the thing is, she started it with a friend. Her mother's a teacher, not really in this whole digital world that we're in, and she was terribly afraid, right? And I said, no, these are the channels. Let them experiment with it. We can look over it. And I think what I think about is be curious. Be curious, whether it's a customer or a 10-year-old daughter. But try and reach them also in the channels that they're in. So instead of sort of ringing her, my daughter was at home and my wife was at work. She said, "Oh, can you ring Bella, just to say she's okay?" And I was off talking to some people, but I didn't. I was in a place and I took a picture and I sent her this message on Snapchat because I knew that that's how she consumes media. Yeah. So just and that can be. However, I work for media companies that have users that are 70 years old, then you need to look at, how do we reach 70-year-olds? Reach them in the channels where they are.
Yeah, and on their level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions?
Coffee,
okay.
friendship,
Coffee.
networking.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you so much.
Just a sec.
That's a first. It's never happened to me, the computer crashing. It's really good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but you did it well.
Have a great day.